The Temple of Edfu is a very special place. It's the best preserved of all the ancient Egyptian temples.
The temple we are visiting here was used for the worship of Horus until the 4th century AD. Now, what was happening here around that time? Egypt was ruled by the Ptolemies, that family who built that temple, until the year 30 BC. 30 BC, Egypt fell under the Roman rule, with Octavius Augustus arriving to Egypt and killing the rest of the family of the Ptolemies, putting an end to that dynasty and declaring that Egypt has become part of the Roman Empire. That was in the year 30 BC. The Romans found that the Greeks were so successful in ruling Egypt, there were no revolutions against the Greeks, because they simply respected the Egyptian gods, and together with the Egyptians, they worshipped the Egyptian gods, rebuilt their temples, and so the Romans decided to go on with the same idea. If it's a successful policy, why not use it? So they started to enforce of the idea that the Roman emperor also represents the Egyptian gods, and they started making additions to the temples or around them that were built by Roman kings or carrying the name of the Roman emperors to show the same kind of scenario. But what happened is 30 years later was the birth of Jesus Christ, and that was also the birth of a new faith here in Egypt, which was threatening to the idea of the Roman emperor representing the gods. So Romans thought this will weaken their presence around this part of the world, and they fought it as hard as they could. That fighting started by like considering people who turn to become Christians are people who are getting mad or crazy. It turned into persecution and being discriminated and considered a lower class of the society. It went on later on to torture and no acceptance. And if someone was found to be Christian, they will kill him. In the year 284 AD, we call that the year of the martyrs. 100,000 Christians were killed just for being Christians. So this is how things went on over time. Then, in the beginning of the 4th century, we moved to the Byzantine dynasty, and the king Constantine says there is freedom of belief that will be, and people can be whatever they like. This was a big change suddenly after that long period of persecution. Soon after that, he announces that Christianity is becoming the official religion of Egypt, and with that, Christians had all the freedom to worship and had all the freedom to take their revenge for the past 300 years of persecution. But revenge from who? The kings are gone, who persecuted them, and the gods are not touchable, except on the walls of the temples. So people took their revenge from the temples, and they started coming into the temples and started chiseling off. Can you see the faces and the bodies and the legs? Chiseling off the figures of the kings and the gods from over the walls of different temples, not only this one. Temples then were closed, including that one in the 4th century AD. It was decided that part of it even will be used as a Christian church, but then they changed their mind about that. And then the temple got deserted. People like the homeless people started coming into the temple to live inside its different halls. So at night time, especially in the cold winter nights, they used to light up fires that would keep them warm. Those fires started staining the ceiling with the black color that we see, and we threw out the temple. But then later on, there was, by the order of the emperor, no living inside temples. And they started closing the temples. People moved away from here, and the wind over hundreds of years started blowing the sand into the temple until the temple here got full of sand. In the end of the 19th century AD, this temple was excavated by Auguste Mariette. If you remember the name, he is the same architect who built the museum we visited in Cairo. The man, that was before building the museum, he came over here. The temple was until the base, the lower parts of the capitals here covered in sand. But it was lower level of sand as we go inside. So he started clearing the temple from the sand that was filling it. And he found some beautiful things over here inside that temple that were meant to end in the Cairo Museum. The scenes around us are scenes telling of the foundation of the temple during the time of the king, which are very similar to the scenes in the next hall, but in the next hall they are better preserved. So let's move forward to see the next hall together. This is a smaller hall of columns. Walls around us are decorated with a series of scenes that record the foundation of the temple in the time of that king over here, Ptolemy VI. He is wearing the crown of the south. Kings of the south would wear that crown. Of course, anyone other than the king is represented smaller than the king. The king must be bigger than anyone else in the figure, in the scene. Then we move onward. The next frame, this one over here. The king here arrives to Edfu. When he arrives to Edfu, he's now wearing the crown of the north, because he came from the north of Egypt, where the Ptolemies ruled from Alexandria, and he's holding his plow or axe, and as if with his axe here, he's digging out the limits of the temple that he intends to build for Horus. Everything here is happening in front of Horus. The next frame, the king here is laying down the first foundation stone of the temple. This is a tradition that started in Egypt more than 4,000 years ago, putting down the first foundation stone of a building by the king or a high official. What they used to do is have the stone tied to a wooden beam, and the king will hold it, place it down on the ground, and then lift it up vertically. Can you see the next scene? That's the stone here, but lifted up vertically through that wooden staff or beam that he's holding in his hand. That was the sign to begin the work. So that symbolizes the beginning of the building of the temple. The next frame. Now the temple exists. This figure here represents the temple. It is the word temple. That's how ancient Egyptians would write the word temple. One of the ways of writing temple in the ancient Egyptian language. It's the figure of the shrine we will see in the innermost part of the temple, and that's the word temple. So now it exists. It did not before because they were just building it. But here now finished. Look at this oval line around it. Wrapping a gift was an ancient Egyptian tradition. So here there is a meaning that the temple is the king's gift to the gods, as if it's wrapped in that oval line. See the dotted line here? As if he's unwrapping it. Of course, it wasn't wrapped and unwrapped, but this is a scene that is symbolic that the temple is his gift to the god, and now it's the time to present it as it is ready. And the next scene then, here is the king then, after the temple is ready, with his hand he is presenting the temple, that is the temple down here, to the gods of it, Horus and his wife, the goddess Hathor. And then he comes and he's raising his hands up and praying to the gods of it, Horus and his wife, the goddess Hathor. This is like a series of scenes that record that the temple was founded by that king over here. Now let's continue to the other side. So on this side over here, another series of scenes showing also the king over here leaving his palace. The king here is facing a goddess, Seshat. Seshat was goddess of mathematics for the ancient Egyptians. And as if the king here is discussing and getting from the goddess the information about the best way to build a temple. And then he's holding a tray with the first blocks or stones of the temple. Now the temple exists, it is wrapped, and he's like unwrapping it, and it's time to present it to the gods. We have once the king is shown wearing the crown of the north, hugged by the goddess Hathor. This is meaning that the gods loved the king for what he did for them, building, of course, the beautiful temple for them. We're facing here the inner sanctuary of the temple, that one here. And that's the best preserved one in all of Egypt. Still got the shrine that used to hold the golden statue of Horus inside it, and the table that carried his statue in ceremonies or festivals. Entry to the temple was only limited to the priests. The furthermore we move inside, the temple was limited to higher and higher ranks of the priests. Until we come to this room we're standing in over here, that was called the Hall of the Cycle of the Gods. And that is only entered by the high priest of the temple. Then the inner sanctum is only entered, or only to be entered, by the king. Of course, because the king is not here all year round, so he assigns the high priest of the temple to present the daily offerings to the god over here. So, in the back of the sanctuary over here, there is that shrine which used to hold a golden statue of Horus. Now, Horus was believed to be a god who lives in the sky, but there are times when that god will come down to earth. When he comes down to earth, he will inhabit the body of his best statue. And that's why they maybe made thousands of statues of Horus from granite, from basalt, from bronze, from copper, all sorts of material. But always the one that will rest inside his sanctuary was from pure gold. making it the best, and the God will come to this one, and that makes this his home. Of course, that golden statue disappeared long time ago, but it used to fit inside that shrine on top of that boat. Let's walk out over here together. Now, these are the rooms surrounding the inner sanctuary here, which are decorated with beautiful offering scenes. If you want to take photos around here or in different parts of the temple as you're leaving, we're going straight outside until the end, turn right, and you're going towards the cafeteria and the parking lot then over there.